Today, well not today, in this video, we are going to be talking about food play and messy play. So take a moment, because I'm going to ask you to let your kids get messy, maybe even get a little messy yourself. Food play and messy play are so important for selective eaters, but truly it's great for all kids because it fulfills the need for sensory exploration and facilitates learning about different foods, as well as different textures and different smells. So the goal of food play and sensory play is for kiddos to familiarize themselves with a food or texture that they're not 100% comfortable with, and a low pressure setting where there's zero pressure to eat whatsoever, and there's just an invitation to play. So oftentimes parents are able to identify when our kid struggles with certain sensations like noise or texture. So for example, my daughter does not do well with slimy textures on her hands or her hands being dirty. But she's getting better. She's 3.5 now, but she really struggled more when she was a little bit younger. So for touch or tactile, she is a sensory avoider. She avoids these sensations. But some kids are attracted to messy play and squeezing or smashing slime, for example. And these types of kids may be tactile sensory seekers. So if you want a more in-depth evaluation of your child's sensory needs, including things that we don't cover in this course, like vestibular input or vestibular sensory needs or auditory sensory needs, for example, an occupational therapist is going to work wonders for you here. We worked with an occupational therapist for my daughter when she was 2, and it was amazing to identify her sensory needs and kind of come up with a game plan. You can also check out an article by Understood that I'm going to link below about sensory seeking and sensory avoiding. So that's a really helpful article if you feel like your kid has difficulty with certain sensations. But it can be really enlightening to find out that you have a kid with sensory needs, because then you identify how to best approach their needs and fulfill their needs. And it was a game changer for us. So side note, kids who are hypersensitive to textures, you may need to take this portion of the course slow. However, this step is especially important for these kids, so don't skip it. Food play and messy play is a key tool and used in feeding therapy. So if your kid's going to feeding therapy, you likely have seen some of these activities or suggestions or ideas. So they might seem a little familiar to you if you're in that boat. So let's talk about food play first. Food play does not have to be expensive, just like novelty. You certainly can get fancy, but it's not necessary. Food play can be easy, cheap, and super fun. This also doesn't have to be like something that takes you half an hour to set up for your kids. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. It can be something that can fit into most schedules. So the 4 key features you should look for in food play are: include a new food or one your child is working on enjoying, so a learning food. Include a familiar object or food, something that will help them feel comfortable with initiating the play. Keep it positive, no pressure to eat, but allow them to eat if there's taste safe items in this food play. So, and then modify it if needed, if your child has sensory needs or if they're struggling. So where to start with food play, sensory play, messy play? Identify what your child struggles the most with. So there's a theme in this course. So think about, what are the things that your child struggles the most with? There's usually a theme there. So look back at the list you made or in the safe foods and the food pairing video. So if you haven't done that video yet, you'll get there and you'll make a list about safe foods, and that list will be important here. So if you haven't watched that, make a list of the foods that your kid feels safe eating and eats reliably and regularly. Now think about, what do you see in common with the foods in your child's learning list? Texture, smell, color, temperature. Is it one specific food that your child struggles with? Incorporate that one aspect. So let's say your child struggles with slimy textures. Incorporate that into the food play or the messy play or the sensory play experience. Do they struggle with Green foods. Well, perhaps you can start with a bowl full of steamed zucchini and steamed broccoli and see how quickly they can turn it into green mashed potatoes using a potato masher. So you don't even have to touch it. They just have to mash. You know, you can say Hulk smash and have them make the mashed potatoes. Maybe you need to start slow with spaghetti noodles dyed green mixed with plastic spider rings and skull erasers from the dollar section for a Halloween sensory bin. Add tongs and scoops and just let your kids be creative. There doesn't have to be an objective. They can just smush and touch and smash around and pour and scoop and measure and explore. Does your child struggle with slimy or mushy textures? So separate some yogurt into small food bowls, use food dye, and let your kids do some yogurt painting. Paint on cardboard, paint on pancakes, paint on themselves, which obviously you want to have a bath ready for that one. But that can be really great too. Does your child struggle with veggies in general? Offer a tortilla with hummus, spread thin, and have them make a silly face with a variety of veggies on the tortilla face. Maybe make a self-portrait. So in general, those are just some examples, but in general, the types of food play I love are, first is art. Making pictures or sculptures with food on a plate or painting and stamping with foods, which is usually fruits or veggies work best for the painting or stamping with foods. Write your name with beets on a paper plate. Use cauliflower as the paintbrush. Use broccoli as a paintbrush. Use steamed broccoli as a paintbrush because it's mushy. Use yogurt as the paint. You can use a smoothie as the paint. So get creative. Use dips, ketchup and mustard. Paint with sweet potato fries if you're working on transitioning them from regular to sweet potato fries. Whatever you have identified as your priority of the food that you want to help them work on, tailor the activity to that. Other types of food play that I like are building. So using just food, like can you stack the carrot sticks like a log cabin, or food and toothpicks. So like blueberry and toothpicks, maybe you can make the Eiffel Tower. Make tower structures or used for stacking games. You can just simply stack. If you have, what could you stack? Like carrot coins, and see how many they can stack, or cucumber slices. Oh, that would be a great one. How many cucumber slices can you stack? Sensory bins. Okay, these are awesome. Use a sensory bin base like noodles, water, whipped cream, applesauce alone, and just have them pour, scoop, smush, measure, weigh, whatever you want to have them do. Or pair with a food they're working on. Add in scoops, tongs, bowls, containers, their favorite toy that is easily washed, and just encourage free play and exploration. These do get messy, so plan ahead. But remember that you can always transfer the activity into a plastic bag for smushing or squishing if your child has trouble touching the food. So if you wanted to do like a bowl of applesauce with like cranberries for Christmas, and you gotta, find the cranberries and get them all out and clean them off and put them in a bowl and have them float in the water. Okay, that's a simple activity, doesn't require any toys or anything like that. But let's say your child struggles with that. Well, you could put the applesauce and the cranberries in a baggie and have them smush it around. You can also try imaginative play. So like restaurant play, where they make your meal, or you place the order and they bring it to you, or vice versa. Maybe they're placing the order and you're bringing it to them, and you give them a menu. You can have them feed their plastic dinosaurs what's for dinner. Pretend to be a bunny. What veggies do bunnies eat? How would a bunny eat this cucumber? Eat your food in a bowl on the floor like a puppy. You'd be surprised how well that one works. How many carrot people do you think can float in your bell pepper in a bowl of water? You can go fishing with celery sticks and hummus on the end for like goldfish, because they'll stick to the hummus. This idea is courtesy of Christina at Christina Toddler Approved, so thanks, Christina. That's also a really fun one. Games. Games is a great way you can do food play. Blind taste testing, different color carrots to guess which color it is. Smoothie judges. So you make 2 smoothies and everybody gets to get out their scorecard and ranking card, and they taste the smoothie and see which one they want for breakfast tomorrow, to pick mom's best new smoothie recipe. This was a funny one I did with my kids the other day. How many cucumber slices can you stick to your face before they fall off? My 18-month-old was like smacking his face with the cucumber. It was hilarious, but he doesn't normally eat the cucumber, but he did that time. Guess the food by smelling it. So maybe your kids are doing their homework and you have them come to the dinner table and everybody has to close their eyes and you put the dinner in front of them and they all get to smell the food, and whoever gets it right chooses a family movie for that night. You can do pattern play with arranging berries just on a plate. You can arrange them on a skewer or a toothpick, assuming that's safe for your child, depending on their developmental age and maturity, and whatever, if they're able to handle pointy objects yet. And then silly, snack time where you can't use your hands. Like, okay guys, we're having this banana for a snack, but you can't use your hands. Or we're having avocado toast and you can only use one finger to eat it. Your kids are gonna think you're kind of wacko, but they'll also probably think it's hilarious. Or have them feed you. That is probably one of the youngest food play, the best food play that works for really young kids, like really young toddlers, is let them feed you. That works really well. I love that tip. It's free, it's easy, not time consuming at all. So as long as they're healthy, have them feed you and see if that helps them feel more comfortable with eating that food for themselves. So make sure you're remembering the 4 key features. Include a new food, include a familiar object or food, keep it positive without the pressure to eat, but of course you can invite them to eat. And then for taste testing games, offer the opportunity to taste, but don't force it. So model tasting the food, but allow your child to use their other senses like smell or touch to participate if they wish. Modify the activity if needed for your child's sensory needs too. Don't forget that part. So let's briefly talk about non-food sensory play before we start to wrap up this video. If you notice your child struggling with textures, exposing them to a variety of textures through play, even if not food related, is so helpful. So like shaving cream on the tub walls, that was really instrumental in helping my daughter with her tactile sensitivity. She would play with like shaving cream in the shower. That was really awesome. Play-Doh, kinetic sand, model magic, oobleck. If you haven't tried oobleck, look it up. It is wonderful. Very messy though, but super fun. Bare feet in the grass was also really helpful for my daughter. She hated stepping in the grass, and that helped with her, exposing her whole body to different sensations. Finger painting, just with regular paint, mud play, water table, water beads, that Easter basket crinkly paper, taste safe sand in the sensory bin. So that would be like mashed up Cheerios and mashed up Chex cereal. Dried rice or beans sensory bins can be really good place to start because they're not slimy, they don't stick, they're a little bit messy if we have spillage, but like they don't get attached to your kids, all over your kids. Each of these ideas give your child a way to interact with a new texture that may not be super familiar with them. So just another opportunity to learn about exploring the world of textures through play. This is so helpful for them when they encounter an unfamiliar texture during a meal or snack time. So you're basically giving them the skills you're equipping them with how to handle a new texture in play, so then they know how to apply that in the real world when they get to food. This play gives them practice. And anecdotally, messy and sensory play have been huge with helping my tactile sensory sensitive daughter. So just personally, I know the struggle if your kids are sensory sensitive, and I know how useful sensory play can be. But that in mind, there are kids who have extreme sensory needs or struggles and really need to work up really slow with this, and may need to work with like an occupational therapist on how to work up to sensory exposure. So for all kids, it's not just as easy as sensory play, and they can now handle new textures. Like sometimes we do need professional help in these situations. So how can we modify activities for your kid if they struggle? If your child refuses to touch the food to their hands, start out with rubber gloves or use a utensil or put it in a baggie for them to mush. Your child refuses to come to the table, set up the sensory play on the floor, set up the food play on the floor so there's less perceived pressure to eat. Know that the smell of certain food could be too much for some kids, so try it cold. Try it cold if it's hot, because cold food usually is less odoriferous or smelly than hot food. Try the activity near a window for more circulation. If the stress or pressure of an activity like this is too much, have your partner or a sibling or a friend try the activity first so your child can just watch and observe, or maybe invite them to try it with somebody to make them feel more comfortable. So I get a lot of questions like, how frequently and when should I do this with my kids? There's no real one answer here. The more you work with exposure, the more your kiddo is gonna likely interact and willingly interact and accept a new or not preferred food. So if you notice your kid struggling with textures or exposure, try this out, and if it helps, do it more. You can start this with any age, even for infants. This is awesome for exposing infants to sensory play, or it is awesome to expose infants to sensory play because it's a great learning activity for them. So a few notes on safety. All sensory play, all messy play, all food play should be supervised at any age. Be cautious with choking hazards for kids under the age of 4, like raw rice, for example. For pre-feeding infants, you can give them foods to explore, like a large raw cucumber or a large raw carrot with close supervision to create, or you can create like a sensory bag or a sensory bottle that's securely closed with food inside of it for them to smash and feel and look at. With your older kiddos, like 3 to 8, make sure to communicate with them if there's anything that they should not eat, like raw rice or raw oats, just so that the expectations are not only verbal in addition to you sitting with them. And remember, if you're using food play, low pressure is key. And that means if you need to move it to the floor from the table to really minimize the eating association, then do that. So your homework for this section is to identify what texture or sensation your child struggles with the most. Pick one activity that will help you expose your child to this new texture or smell. A low pressure activity, remember, and try this in the upcoming week and see what you think, or see what they think, and let me know too. So that's it for this video.